knowing that you have one life to live, are you on the right path? And if you're not sure, or if there's something you want to explore, how do you explore that? How do you kind of check it out without being all in?
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld.
Hi, everyone. Ben Osterveld here on the From Within podcast, where we take a look at what goes on inside us and how it affects our life and how do we actually get what kind of life we want. We got to look within. Everything gets affected that way. We have Robin Hobbs with us today. I'm very excited. I've known Robin for a few years. She is a graduate of the Business From Within 1-year program I run. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about you just crossed the Atlantic Ocean on a sailboat. And I want to hear all about this. Robin, thanks for jumping on the show with me, and really appreciate it. Really do.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share the story and why I did it, and if I'll do it again or all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
That's great. I know there's going to be a lot of people that'll get a lot of good nuggets on getting the life they want versus just living. So if we had to theme it, I think that's what we're going to talk about. So what is this Atlantic, crossing the Atlantic? It's not the first thing I think of when I think of Robin Hobbs, when I've been through coaching. Like, I know this girl's going to cross the Atlantic, not really connecting the dots. So let's hear all about it.
Yeah, no, not at all. To be honest, I am scared of sailboats and the ocean. Everything below the water absolutely terrifies me. But a few years back, my husband and I had purchased a boat with my dad. So we have a sailboat here in Collingwood, and yeah, I'm terrified of the wind and sailing and all that sort of stuff. But I really wanted to not be in that position. I wanted to be comfortable with it. I know that there's a big world out there, and there's so much undiscovered parts of it for myself, in regards to the ocean and traveling around. The crossing the Atlantic Ocean, there's this event that happens every year. It's called the ARC, the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers. And I had heard about it through another friend of mine, Jason Rattan, a real estate broker here in Collingwood, Wasaga Beach area. And he is an avid sailor, and he had done it the year previous. And when he told me about it, I thought he was absolutely crazy. But I could picture him doing that. And then lo and behold, a year later, it just had sunk into me so much more that I had this burning desire to do it as well.
It's funny how we resist the thing we want. It's like weird psychology. You're like, oh no, that is crazy. And like a year later, you're like, I want to do it. Like it's so funny. Humans are hilarious. We're all really weird that way. It's like, maybe it's a clue of what you're resisting you actually might want, because it's funny, a year later, you're wanting to sail.
Well, I think a big part of it was I knew I was, scared of the wind and terrified of the ocean. And so how do you overcome that?
Love it.
You just have to do it.
You have to do it.
You have to do it. And I would have never imagined myself, doing that with my family. That's just too scary, too risky.
Yes, high risk.
not trusting in our abilities. But doing it in the organized event, on a boat with other sailors, and not that they really had all, our whole set of crew, I wouldn't say that they were all that well experienced by any means. But maybe that was just ignorance from me at the beginning, thinking everything was going to be peachy and fine. But yeah, I just had to put myself in that situation to overcome it. And then obviously, the feeling of accomplishment from doing it.
You went across the Atlantic. So what was it like? Was it like free sailing, no problem? Was there any like storms? Like you make it sound like, yeah, it's all good. I'm like, I don't know. Like, was there times where you were freaking out? Like I'm kind of like you. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's the ocean. That's a big, scary place.
Yeah, totally. So I've heard people describe sailing before as 90% boring, 10% absolutely terrorizing. And I think that's a pretty accurate description. It wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, that's for sure. We had our challenges going across, but we made it, and to me that's success and a huge celebration. But yeah, I remember my first night I kind of had the hardest time, and that was because I knew that we all had to take our 2-hour shifts throughout the night to be sailing on our own. And so we had 8 people on board, but there was a family of 5 which had 3 kids. And the kids were 15, 13, and 11. And then 3 extra crew that were brought on to help. Everyone else had experience with night sailing, but I didn't. And I think I was just terrified of it. And also that first night, I mean, there's 200 boats that leave all that same afternoon together. So the first night, it's a little bit chaotic and it's pitch black. Oh, there's boats everywhere, but it's pitch black. And so you're just, watching on the radar, and you have these alarms going off on the boat, telling you if you're too close or whatever. And it was just, I've never done sailing like that before. And not to mention that night was there's this area that they call the acceleration zone that you have to go through first night. And yeah, it was horrible. So
that sounds fun. The acceleration zone that sounds like a fun thing.
it certainly, puts you in the trenches very quickly. So yeah, we had massive, 35 knot winds and big waves that very first night. And so I remember I had the 12 till 2 shift. And I made it through this shift, but I swear my heart, I felt my heart hitting my shirt every single flippin' beat. And not that I was doing anything physically demanding, I was really just kind of manning the helm, but it was on autopilot. You set it to autopilot on the rev, but you're there to monitor everything. But my God, my heart rate that night was just brutal. So anyways, I finally finished my shift. The next person comes to relieve me. We have a little debrief about everything.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. And so I go down in the cabin and I'm going to take some gravel and I'm going to go to bed. I swallowed the gravel and I immediately puked it up.
Oh, really?
But not, not nicely puke in the toilet. No.
Like ugly puke.
Oh, ugly puke.
Oh, no.
Where's my mom to clean this up kind of puke.
Oh, no.
It was horrible. And then, and then the whole oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Am I really going to be seasick? Because that would be horrible. And the last thing, the skipper wants on board is, crew that are seasick. So anyways, I start, to go get supplies to clean it up. But I'm still in the bowels of the boat and it's rocking and rolling. And now I'm cleaning up puke. And so I end up puking again. And
no.
Anyways, three times later, I get it completed and I make it to bed. And that was, that. So by the next day, winds had calmed and everything is way more stable. And then I think we went into about 3 days of practically nothing for wind. It was very uneventful.
Yeah.
And then later on the trip, you get, big scary winds again. And so it was a mix of everything.
Wow. So now it's just amazing. One of my favorite things is watching someone overcome what holds them back. I feel like the world is ours and it is so inspiring to see just how you've kind of put yourself in a position to face your fears and you're I don't want to be controlled by that anymore. And there's a thought that you said, it said, never done it before. And I think about people, I hear that a lot from like older generations. Wow, I've never done that. I don't know. Like, it's almost like it's almost like that holds people back. Never done it before. So now that thought, never done it before, is that still there? Like, what happens once you've gone through that?
Well, yeah, never done it before is something that drives me nuts too, because if I want, and I think that's what inspired me to do it, is I thought I wanted that situation and possibly wanted that life of living on the ocean with my family. I just wasn't sure, but I was terrified of it. But at the same time, I desired it so badly. So never done it before. Yeah. I had to do it. I had to know.
So let's go back, Robin. I know before we recorded, you had mentioned when you were talking about you've had this dream. You've had this dream to live on a boat. It's like almost like, tell me about that process of just setting aside your dream. And you're like, whatever, like go through that. Tell me that was really interesting. I think it would really affect the people that listen. It's like, we all have this dream. It's like, why don't you go get it? Or maybe you don't even want the dream after you've done it. Like, maybe tell us a little bit about the journey of like this vision you had in your head to live on a sailboat. Because I think a lot of people might have that, to be honest.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would call it a dream. It was like a curiosity. Okay. Do I want this? Do I want this? Because I would watch YouTube videos of people and families who are sailing around the world and living abroad and making a life of it, and just not doing life on the hard.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, you can't not be inspired when watching those videos. Everybody.
My friend Chris Biasuti, I don't know if you listened to him. I interviewed him. He's 4 years on a sailboat. I'm assuming you listened to that episode.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. He legit did it.
Yeah. So
it is inspiring, but I think there's two sides. But yeah, it's inspiring. You cannot not be inspired. Like, holy crap, he sold it all, bought a catamaran, and he's living around all these cool little islands, and it sounds amazing. Yeah. There's a fantasy about it.
Absolutely. And I think I would watch that stuff, and I would then fantasize about it too. And I would just kind of ignore the fact that I had the fear about it. Like I would separate the things, because I'd fantasize I would fantasize about it, and I would ignore this. But then my fantasies kind of like got bigger and bigger, and it was like, okay, well, let's bring in some reality here. And you can't be afraid, terrified if you're actually going to go down this path. You have to have enough courage to So I remember so my friend Jason had kind of inspired me, telling me about his story, and it made me want to do it. So I'd made up my mind that I wanted to do it, and I remember telling my husband,
shit just got real.
And I said, Brad, I there's something I want to tell you, that something I really, really want to do, and I think I'm going to do it. But I just want to talk to you about it. And I said, so the trip that Jason did, and I think I really want to do it this year. I want to try to get selected. And he was like, well, that's awesome. But nice. He said, he's like, I think that would be amazing. But coming from the girl who doesn't like tippy, are you sure you want to put yourself in that situation? It's like,
what are you doing?
Totally. Yeah. And I'm like, well, Brad, that's a very fair comment.
Yeah.
I said, but I think I just got to do it anyway. Because like, if not, I'm always going to be afraid of tippy. So I need to like work through that discomfort. And he's like, okay, like, keep me posted with, he's like, obviously Well, obviously it impacts him a great deal as well, because that means I'm, gone for a month, and, we have a 9-year-old child, and my husband works 10 hours a day, and, child goes to school for 6 hours a day.
Yeah. Math's not adding
there's
up.
gonna, something doesn't add up there. And I said, obviously I'd have to talk to my mom and see how excited she would be about the situation. And he's like, yeah, if your mom is on board, I 100%, support you doing it and think it would be great. As long as, we can make it a reality for making the schedule work, kind of thing. And then my mom, I remember telling her, and I didn't even, I just mentioned crossing the Atlantic, and she's like, when do I move in? And
wow,
she was just
awesome.
so supportive for it, and absolutely wanted it to happen. And
it started with you talking about it, though. You know what I mean? It's like, if you would have kept that in your head, I wonder how many people why don't you just say what you want? Sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to be like, this is what I want. It's like we feel bad, or I don't want to put that on people. You had to be pretty inconvenient to a lot of people to get what you wanted, Robin. That's a really interesting psychology. You had to face, I'm going to make everyone around me uncomfortable because I want what I want. I think that's what stops so many people. What do you think?
I 100% agree that that's what stops people. There's a guilt associated with it, and I felt it too. But there's a different guilt as well of, imagine going through your life feeling unfulfilled. And I know I was 100% having those feelings of being unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know where I was unfulfilled in life. So you start looking at different things and different relationships and different whatever. Is it, is it work? Is it family? Is it, all of those things.
You put it, you put everything under a microscope. I know, a filter of is this what I want? Is this what I want? Is this satisfying me? That's one of the most powerful journeys I've seen how many people do, because you actually can get the life you want. It literally is right there for you, and people don't take it. Like you said, I think it might be guilt or whatever. Right. So did you feel those feelings
of guilt?
Feeling guilt through that process?
Totally.
You look at me what a dumb question.
Yeah, I'm a mom, a wife. You can't leave your kids.
And you're you're a real estate agent too.
Yeah, business.
That's the thousands lost of just being gone. And all the people, where are you? What's the long-term effects? I could see 50 different ways why you should not do this.
Totally. But I'll give you 51.
Nice.
But no, the timing of this event is so, really aligned with the schedule of my business, sort of. I had mentioned before that I tend to do 2/3 of my business in the first 6 months of the year. Things slow down in the summer for me personally. And I think that's, a combination of, kids being off school, and it's a nice sailing season here in Ontario as well, and I might get distracted a little bit.
Door knock or sail. Very easy solution. Yeah.
But then September comes, and I ramp up things as more and more, but then you start to get into Christmas season. Exactly. And things kind of slow down a bit. So this event takes place at the end of November. So I remember I flew out November 12th, and I had 10 days, in Las Palmas at the boat, at the dock, helping to prep and prepare for the event. And then we set sail, and it took us 19 days to cross. So we had arranged prior that my husband and my son were going to be in St. Lucia to meet me. And that was the best decision ever.
So cool.
I wouldn't have been able to handle it otherwise.
So you made something work, you made some adjustments, but it actually created a holiday, it created an adventure as a family versus, so in a weird way, it's
Totally.
like, it's actually including them. They're not sailing or whatever, but they're included. And so like, why not, like, instead of looking at the objections, just find some other solution, you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't leave my kids. Or what if I fly them? Oh yeah. Like how, like
Yeah.
it's not a hard thing to do, but we create these objections when we really have a lot of more solutions. It sounds like that's
Yeah.
what you did.
Yeah. So it worked out really well. I mean, they had, you know, the opportunity to look forward to this nice trip in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
They were there a week ahead of me because we didn't really know when I would be arriving. And we wanted to make sure that they had, you know, a significant trip as well.
Yeah.
So we had lined up 2-week holiday for them, and hopefully I arrived sometime between that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was so good and important. And I remember for my son, I had made this, I printed out this calendar, you know, just from the internet, and I marked on the calendar where I would be sleeping every night. So, you know, first I had to fly, you know, from Toronto to Portugal. So I had a night in Portugal.
Crazy.
And then I had to fly to Las Palmas, and I was at the boat for 10 days. So I would, you know, I just needed him to feel comfortable on where I was, so that it didn't feel like I was on the ocean for a month, because that's scary. That's scary to anybody. So he knew the day I was leaving, but then they were leaving for their trip, you know, only about a week or so after that.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess it was a little bit longer, but
that's cool though.
It broke the time down a lot and made it so much better. And then, having them there at the finish line is just, you know.
How cool.
Yeah.
So Robin, I love this story. There's so much in it. I think you said to me, which I have a really big passion for it because of what you told me regarding, like, people use money as an excuse all the time. It's one of the biggest excuses I run into all the time. But what you told me, I'd love for you to share, is that how was your financial state and how is your business affected by you chasing fulfillment in a way, going after something that would actually fill your soul, that would inconvenience everybody, that might cost you money. And you give me the 50,000 excuses, but let's look at reality. So you take this trip, right? It, like, personally, it does something to you. What happened to your business during the time that year, you said?
Yeah, so I had one of my best business years during that time. And a huge part of it, I think, is because I was so focused on chasing this sailing dream, and that it affected so many other areas of my life. So I remember I was doing this 30-day video challenge. And it was, you know, it was in regards to real estate, but it was also almost every message I always updated on any progress on the sailing, you know, on the sailing front, because I had put the message out there that I was going to do this, but yeah, I did not have a position. I had not been selected yet to do this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I don't know, you have to line up these pieces first, because I can't get selected and then go ask my husband, hey, do you mind that I take off for a month? And like, oh, hey, mom, do you mind?
But it's the motion of
going
going forward to it. Like, it's almost a step of faith or law of attraction. You're like calling it in, like you're moving toward it without surety, without certainty, right?
Totally. So, and I remember I had signed up for this sailing course that I felt was really important for me to kind of get some chops and hopefully improve my sailing resume so that someone would be interested in me and having me as a crew member.
I'm totally green. No clue what I'm doing. Can I come?
Exactly.
But you made, what's interesting is because you made that decision, you started directing your life. Like, I need a course now. So it's funny because as real estate agents and even as business owners, it's just the natural thinking, I got to grind. I got to work harder. And it's funny because you got better results focusing on something completely different, but you got better results in your business. This is the thing that's like, when we were working together in business for women, we call it the luck factor. Like, it's when you can be you for real, you get lucky. And I don't know how it works, but I've just seen it over and over again. It just reminds me of that.
Yeah, it was totally just being real, being authentic to what I wanted. Any real estate advertising that I did, it had a sailing message in it. And like, what are the two things related? And they're not. They're not at all.
Got it.
Except I think it was attracting people in that, hey, I like what she's doing, and I actually just want to hear more about sailing. And how the hell does she manage to line this up to, step away from her business and leave her husband and her son for a month? And like, how does she get to, financially go away?
You know what it is? It shakes that inner core of every human being that is living empty, doing what they should do, grinding out because I don't have my retirement yet set up totally. I don't have my independent wealth yet, whatever BS. And then you see someone going, Robin, you can't do that. What's going on? It's like, It is like magnetic when you're like, I'll do it. Because I think everyone wants that in some level. What's their sailing? Like, could be piano. Why are you playing the piano? I have so many kids. Go fucking play the piano. Yeah. Like, it just drives me crazy. As you see, I get all fired up, but because it's like these people are all stuck and they don't need to be. And I think when they see you do this, they're like, holy crap, how can you do this? Just like you said. But then I think about this, just basic real estate. It's actually quite practical because it's like, watch this. What else do we say? I'm a real estate agent and I'm the best. You're going to want to use me. I have the most expertise. That's white noise. How about this? Hey, look, I like to sail. Boom, I'll hire you. Like, they don't choose you because of your expertise. And that's the biggest dilemma. It's like, I'm going to get more expertise. I'm going to be a buyer specialist now. I'm going to be an apprentice. No, how about just be you? Yeah. And just, you're such evidence of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just being myself. And, when it comes to real estate, there's phenomenal realtors out there. And I'm a good realtor, but I'm just, I keep in my lane, and I don't, I'm not a huge marketer. I don't like the spotlight on me. I'm totally uncomfortable with all of that. And I think, I give a little bit, just enough to intrigue people and not kind of like step out of my marketing comfort zone. Yeah. And, my husband and I got involved in rental properties here in Collingwood, as soon as we moved here from out west. And I think people probably felt like, maybe because of the rental properties, she can just step away, and she's built this life around it. And
that makes a good social media post anyways. It's more, it's a lot of fake social media posts regarding that. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Like it, and it does, like, I don't know, it helps. Like, people will build up a story in their own head.
Yes.
About what they believe or what they want to believe or all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's been, I don't know. And I would do it again. I would absolutely, like, if I wanted to boost my career, I'd do it again.
That's so awesome. See, that's the connecting the dots from inner work to business success. And it's not connecting with most people. Like, go be you, have the amazing life, and watch your business flourish. Like, this connection is like, you're such a great evidence of that happening. And how do you feel now, Robin? You finished this trip. How do you feel? Like, do you feel that feeling of empty a little bit still? Do you have that? Or is it really satisfied now? Like, what do you feel like?
I don't feel empty at all. I feel way more clarity on what I want. Wow. I learned that I don't want to live with my family on a sailboat at this time. Maybe it's something that my husband and I do later. But it's hard. Like, the simple things like doing the laundry or figuring out groceries or meal prep, or like, you think COVID grocery shopping was hard, like try being on a sailboat and, prepping that for that
you got
amount
weight issues now. It's like you got to weigh it, and there's different things, right?
well, yeah, we had, well, I guess some people, we had to like wash our food for cockroach eggs, or, anything
That's
like
crazy.
just stuff like that. Or like, how are you making your vegetables last for 3 weeks on the water? Or other sailors, I mean, they go for way more than 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's harder than the fantasy was saying. So you've learned something a little bit.
Yeah. But at the same time, I learned, like, I've only just scratched the surface in regards to the ocean. I'm absolutely still intrigued by it. And so, maybe if in 10 years or so, it's a reality for my husband and I to do that more permanently. Between now and then, I would 100% be interested in doing like boat transports every year.
Cool. Yeah. You just take it down, or cool.
And,
but you see what happens is you're opening the door to new thinking. You're opening because you did that, you see other ways you can do it now. That's so, because you moved forward, it's opening up new doors and new possibilities. I love how you're saying you took this risk, you bet on you bet on this dream, and you got clarity. Like that's the one thing I talk to a lot of people, I work with a lot of people. That's the one thing they're looking for. It's like, you're just stuck. Like, does it take a big step forward like that? Does it take, like, how do you get that? Like, if you had to look, you just went through it. If someone wasn't clear, what would you say to do?
Well, do you question the lane that you're in? Like, do you not have regrets about where you are, but do you ever wonder, knowing that you have one life to live, are you living it? Are you on the right path? And if you're not sure, or if there's something you want to explore, how do you explore that? Like, how do you kind of check it out without being all in?
Interesting.
Because
how do you check it out without being all in? Interesting.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, it was just such an incredible opportunity. Like, I got to live with another family for a month. And, there's, in one respect, you could say, oh, that's, I wouldn't really look forward to that at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would totally agree. On the other hand, it's like, wow, what perspective I'm getting. Like, it's amazing. These people, it was an Italian family, and they sold their home in Italy to buy this catamaran.
Oh, cool.
And the reason I don't think financially they needed to sell the home to do it. They did it because they didn't want to revert back so easily.
So they burnt their ships.
They burnt their bridge intentionally.
They're like, we can't, because human nature is like a wool aboard.
Yeah, go back to comfort.
Yeah, certainty.
Yeah.
Robin,
so I know that they had a little bit of a transition getting used to it, and because they were not sailors either.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no sailing experience, no boating experience. Like,
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think this experience has made you a better mom?
Absolutely. I mean,
crazy. Really? Like, it's so cool. It's so not 1 + 1 = 2. Like, go sailing to be a better mom. Like, explain that.
Well,
cool.
It just, to explore an area of interest is so important for anybody. And, I would ask my son, I ask him quite often, actually, hey, would you do this? Or today, would you do it? Tomorrow? Like, and he keeps saying no and no and no, but I mean, he's young still. But it's just, being able to check something out is so important. And he knows that we've been on our own sailboat and, go through storms here in Georgian Bay, and, he gets terrified. And that's just Georgian Bay, which, can be, if anyone knows, I mean, it can be very scary out there as well. But it's just he knows that I absolutely faced a fear to do this, and didn't shy away from it. And I know he's so proud anytime we talk about it. And I did a lot of, I took a fair bit of video during the course of the trip, and we got back, my whole family came back, and I think it was December 23rd when we came back.
Oh, wow.
And on December 26th, a bunch of my family was over for Christmas celebration here. So in that short period of time, I had to organize all of my photos and videos, because I knew it would just be so many questions and this and that, and it would just be better if I had something organized. So I did, but my son kept like interrupting every time, because he's telling a story about the photo. Like, he was just he was really passionate about it, and really, he was proud. Like, he was really proud of his mom for doing this.
So maybe even a deeper connection from doing this with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that, because there's so much guilt around leaving the kid, and we want to build the kid's life. Man, you taught him how to follow your heart, You know
what, in regards to the guilt, it's okay to have it, but I don't think it's okay to let it define you. Because as a mom, I totally took care of his responsibilities. Having grandma here, I mean, she's a better mom than I am. Like, like, he had her here attending to him all the time. He had his dad here. On the weekends when, Brad was off work, my mom would leave and, to give them space, and she'd come back a couple days later. And so, and then, my dog, who's completely attached to me and stuff that.
You got an awesome dog. Yeah.
He's pretty awesome. But, he loves grandma. Like, I didn't worry about them, because I knew that they were they were taken care of. All that mattered to me was, arrive alive, and, and make sure that's all good. And we're going to have, a happy reunion on the other end. And, my husband is so proud of me to accomplish this. And because he knows, like,
he just knows he knows you intimately, right? Like, he knows how scared you'd be. And I would just imagine if that was my wife, Renee, on this boat, I'd be like probably freaked out the whole time. Like, and I know she'd be exhilarated and scared, and I would just be going through all these emotions of me dying. Like, I know she's freaked out, and she's on the ocean, she could die. I just imagine what your husband was going through, even though he's proud of you and supportive. It's like that, still that, like, holy shit.
Yeah. And then the other part of it, so there's 4 cabins in the catamaran. So I knew ahead of time, well, on the whole interview process with the family, they had asked me, originally they were thinking just 7 people total. Myself, 1 other crew member in the family, but the husband did say, like, there might be a chance we want to consider an 8th person. And if so, it would most certainly be a male. And that would mean you'd have to share your cabin with
some male stranger. Yeah. Your husband's like, yeah, no problem.
and he's like, how would you feel about that? Would that be okay? And I'm like, look, I'd obviously prefer not to, but there's no way I'm letting that be a deal breaker.
No doubt. That's so cool.
So yeah, no problem. So I tell my husband, and he's like, same attitude.
Yeah.
Like, of course you're not going to let that be a deal breaker. So yeah, for a month, I shared a small bed with another man.
Oh, like the same bed?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. What was that first night like? You're like, Robin, I'd be so worried that I'd start cuddling because I'll wake up in the middle of the night totally like kissing my wife and cuddling. That's like, I'm like, I can't stop that. I wake up and I'm like spooning
Yeah.
her. It's like, I would be the worst bedmate. Like, what the hell? I'm like, I don't know.
So like legit, I was very concerned about
Yeah.
So I had arrived at the boat, I think 2 days before.
Yeah.
Damien is his name.
Yeah.
So I was already, there and kind of, set up in the room. Damien arrived a couple days later. Me and Layla, the kind of the wife of the boat, had greeted him and, had a nice conversation. We were just kind of like sitting in the living room area of the boat.
Yeah.
And he's got all his bags there, and he knows too that he has to share the room. So we're all having friendly conversations, but it's awkward.
It's weird.
Awkward.
Like, we're sleeping together. It's so weird.
So anyways, Layla says, okay, well, Damien, you can go put your bags down in the room. And he says, yeah, okay, great. I'll go put them down.
Yeah,
so he disappears for a couple minutes. He comes back up later and he says, I think for the first night, I'll just crash here on the couch if that's okay. And, just, I'm a gentleman, and like it's been 10 minutes.
You're like, okay, this guy's okay. Like if he's like, hey, can't wait to sleep together, it might be different.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, thank God. And Layla was like, well, I said that to myself, but Layla was saying like, oh, are you sure? I mean, I want you to be comfortable, and and I'm just like, shut the frick up, like.
Yeah. No,
I think she just wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to make that his home, like the living room.
Yeah,
she needed to make sure that like eventually
the bed, yeah.
So anyways, got through that first night and was very grateful for how it worked out. And then the second night, I was kind of caught off guard. I didn't realize that he had gone down into the room, and I went down to go to bed, and he was there in the bed.
So weird. I'd be like, what the heck?
And he said, yeah, so I figured we just needed to nip this in the butt. So I set myself up tip to toe. I hope that's going to be okay. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's perfect.
Weird. Hey? Especially being so married. That's what I mean. You're so married. It's not like, it's not.
But he is too. I mean, like, he's married. He has a wife and two kids as well.
Yeah. So it's okay.
It was okay. It was
what a great experience.
And then, but the next morning, he had left the room before me. I kind of came up to the breakfast table, and some of the adults were there, and so they said, "So how was your first night?" and Damien's there too, and I said, "Well, it was okay." I said, "But Damien, you snore." And he says, "Well, I'm really sorry about that. I'll try not to, but I'll have you know, you do too."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's such bullshit. My husband said that from time to time too, but I don't believe either.
I don't believe it.
Anyways, he was great, and my husband met him, in St. Lucia as well, and he ended up actually staying with our family for 2 days in St. Lucia.
Cool.
My husband thinks he's the greatest guy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I think it's such an awesome story. So great. Robin, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up here. I think that's a great place to kind of close her out. I think it's funny, but I just actually wanted to do one thing though. I just think that you've kind of are fresh off the boat in a way. And I feel like if you can imagine someone sitting here listening, and we have these moments, and I'd like to give the opportunity for you to give some advice. Someone like yourself, maybe it's a mom that's given her life to raising kids, and maybe that's what she does, or she's there to support the family. It's a lot of tradition out there, or maybe it's someone that just refuses to go after their dream, or it's got the edge. Like, what would you give them advice? Like, speak to them.
Yeah. Well, I think you just have to kind of pick something, like what's something that interests you. And for me, I mean, sailing is something that interests me immensely, but scares me as well. And I think that's maybe part of the allure to it. So yeah, if that person could answer that question, you know, is there an area of interest that you're not good at, but you wish you were, like you really wish you were, like you made the example of being a piano player. Like I would love to be an amazing piano player as well. And yeah, if you could spend that time to go immerse yourself in it, like take yourself away from your family, and maybe you go to this, you know, somehow get this opportunity to live with or be with, you know, immersed in this musician's house or something like that, or you're just helping, or you're I don't know, but like you just got to take yourself away from your everyday situation to go explore this other interest, and see if, you know, it provides you more answers or clarity or fulfillment or whatever. You know, our lives can't just be about the grind.
Well, thank you for that, Robin. We'll end the recording here, and I can't wait to share this. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. No problem, Ben. Thanks for having me.